What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Drama Bear podcast. And today we got the fourth episode of the 2023 Chicago Bears free agency outlook. And in today's video, after talking about offensive line, defensive line, and wide receivers already, I want to take a look at some sleepers in the 2023 NFL free agency that the Chicago Bears could pursue. All those players, 8 players in total today, play at a position of need for the Chicago Bears. So we will have a running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive lineman, 2 defensive linemen, a linebacker, and cornerback in today's video. Super excited to talk about those players because all of them are very underrated. Watch tape on all of those guys right now, like limited tape, just 1 to 2 games and some certain situations, but still got an impression of these players. I know some players already, but, just get a more in-depth look what they could bring to the Chicago Bears, and that's what I want to talk about today, what those players can add to the roster for even maybe cheaper money than some other free agents, and they could be as valuable to the team as well. So with that being said, I don't want to waste any more time, and let's start off with the first player that I want to talk about today, which is at the running back position, Alexander Mattison. And Alexander Mattison is a well-known name for Chicago Bears fans. Obviously played in the NFC North since 2019, since he was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. The guy's 5'11", 215 pounds, and 24 years young still. He will be 25, though, at the start of the season, which is still super young. And when we look at the Chicago Bears running back position at the moment, we obviously have to decide with David Montgomery, but it definitely seems like the Chicago Bears want to let him walk into free agency. So that leaves us with Trestan Ebner, the 6th-round rookie from last year out of Baylor, and obviously Khalil Herbert. And I'm just so excited about Alexander Mattison hitting free agency, hopefully hitting free agency, because he was always that running back 2 behind Dalvin Cook in Minnesota, but the guy is super explosive, super fast. You saw it whenever he was in, the offense still produced. Like, there was not a big drop off as soon as Dalvin Cook left the field, and Alexander Mattison, subbed in onto the field. He was absolutely phenomenal. As for his stats in 2022, he played a good amount of games, like he played in all 17 games actually, had 74 rushes, 283 yards, and 5 touchdowns, and the years prior also had really productive years for the Minnesota Vikings. What I love about his game, he's a pretty damn good pass catcher as well. Like I said, super explosive and aggressive runner, which I love, and he always has a nose for the end zone, and I think he finally wants to get an opportunity to be somewhat of a lead back. I think with Khalil Herbert, he showed so much last year that Madison's probably not going to get handed the job, right? But it will probably be a similar situation like last year with David Montgomery, more of a split backfield, which I like getting the player that is the hot hand at the moment, feed him, and as soon as he drops off or his legs get tired, right, bring in the fresh legs, for example, now Alexander Mattison, and he will produce, and so on and so forth. So you got healthy running backs, a great duo in there, and Alexander Mattison is one heck of a player potentially hitting free agency that I would love seeing on the Chicago Bears. As for his contract, real quick as well, Spotrac projects a contract of $2.2 million per year, and actually say that he only will get a 1-year, $2.2 million deal. If I'm the Chicago Bears and got the opportunity to sign him, we could even offer him a little bit more, but $2.2 million would be a dream pickup for an amazing player in Alexander Mattison, once again. And yeah, contract length-wise, 1 year would be okay, but I'm even okay with giving him a longer-term deal. But like I said, would be a dream pickup in free agency to have a really solid, at least backup in Alexander Mattison for the moment. And with that being said, we want to move on to the second player that I want to talk about today, which is a super underrated one as well, in Deontay Hardy, former wide receiver of the New Orleans Saints. And Deontay Hardy, formerly known as Deontay Harris, actually. I didn't know that, but I saw it on Pro Football Reference. He changed his name in 2022, so that's kind of funny. But he's a 5'6", 170-pound wide receiver that turned 25 in December. Still really young player. And you might think, yeah, wide receiver, 5'6", not really interested into that because we need that wide receiver one, right? We're looking for that for Justin Fields. I know. But I think in free agency, there's not that clear-cut wide receiver one. And if we're attacking wide receiver, it should be, or that wide receiver one spot, it should be through the trades that could be possibly available for DeAndre Hopkins or maybe in the draft as well. But Deontay Hardy is definitely a very intriguing player hitting free agency potentially this year. Now, he was on injured reserve in 2021, which is not amazing. So he's coming off of an injury, which could potentially be actually good for his value in free agency, right? This might lower his price, but the guy's a one-time Pro Bowler and one-time All-Pro as a punt returner. Size-wise, all-pro punt returner, right? Kind of sounds similar to Tariq Cohen back in the day, which was just one heck of a player as well. And Deontay Hardy was actually super productive in 2021 before his injury. In 2022, had 13 games, started one of those, and had 36 catches for 570 yards and 3 touchdowns with a long 72-yard touchdown. And I mean, the guy is just an absolute incredible player. I really want him on the Bears, like badly, because I think he would be such a great addition to the team. He's also not totally limited to the slot because the Saints used him in both outside and in the slot. He was just more of a, not really trick weapon, but they just used him in certain situations, kind of schemed him open with picks and just let him write a pick route by the tight end and just let him run a slant underneath of it and then just make some yards after the catch, where he is excellent at. But he's also pretty damn good route runner. He had one incredible route in 2021 against the Falcons, curl route where he just completely left the corner standing there. Beautiful route as well. And like I said, after the ball hits his hands, he's absolutely unstoppable. Deep threat ability as well, and just a super underrated player overall. As for a projected contract, we're talking about potentially around $8.5 million per year, which is, I think, totally fine with him. They project a 3-year, $25 million contract. And compared to deals like Cedric Wilson, who I think signed it in 2022 in free agency with the Dolphins, if I'm not mistaken, signed a 3-year, $22 million deal for $7.3 million per year at age 26. So if I compare that to Cedric Wilson, I think the deal might even be somewhat more in that kind of a category with $7 million per year because Deontay Hardy is coming off of an injury. So I would definitely throw that money at him. We get tons of money, and you want to give Justin Fields as many weapons as possible. You get an excellent punt and kick returner in there as well, a guy that can get open, that is super fast after the catch, and would be just a great small weapon right there for Justin Fields in that offense. And I think Luke Getsy would absolutely love him too. So Deontay Hardy, definitely a guy to watch out for in this year's free agency. And with that, we want to move on to the next position that I want to talk about today, which is a tight end in Dan Arnold, formerly known for the Carolina Panthers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Dan Arnold is a tight end that stands at 6'6", 240 pounds, and is still 27 years young, but will turn 28 on March 15th, so as soon as free agency officially starts and the new league year. But I think Dan Arnold is one of the more intriguing tight ends in this year's free agency, especially if you're not looking for that tight end one, because we got Cole Kmet. I'm super happy with him, but I think we need some better and younger backups finally for him as well. And Dan Arnold is a super intriguing player for me, and 2021 had more production, especially with the Carolina Panthers, and the Jacksonville Jaguars did pretty good as well. He was traded pretty early in that season. I can remember that. Was also super productive for Arizona in 2020. So 2020 and 2021, we're talking about 2 400-plus yard seasons. And then last year, 2022, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, his role was obviously lowered with Evan Ingram being there, but he still had 9 receptions for 135 yards. yards. At his size and weight, he's definitely a pretty damn good blocker as well. And then as soon as he has the ball, he's a pretty damn athletic guy as well, Dan Arnold. So I think he would be an excellent backup that can definitely make some plays on the offense. And I've talked about that in my latest video, I think, as well, with the Titans coming out of the draft, which is amazing as well. A great group. Those guys fit perfectly into the Bears' offensive system, and so does Dan Arnold, because the Bears love 12, 13 personnel and also run some play action out of it. So Dan Arnold will be a great addition to the Bears' offense. Now, do you still want to look out for the young tight ends in the draft class? Totally, but get a veteran in on a 1 or 2 year deal. Let those guys sit in there as well, because those will probably be later round rookies, because the Bears got other needs in the earlier rounds. So if we pick a tight end late in the draft, Dan Arnold can only be a positive factor, because he can be somewhat of that mentor role next to Cole Kmet for those guys as well, and can be an immediate contributor to the offense as well. As for projection, I mean, there's no true projection this time by Spotrac, but he signed a 2-year, $6 million deal with the Panthers, and I think a deal could definitely look the same for Dan Arnold, maybe a 1-year $3 or a 1-year $4 million deal as well. 1-year deal would be, or wouldn't be bad at all either. But Dan Arnold, definitely one of my favorite players hidden free agency at the tight end position that definitely go under the radar, and we should definitely look out for him as well. And with that being said, we want to move on to the offensive line now, and I got one guard that I want to talk about today, which is Nate Davis, formerly known for the Tennessee Titans. Nate Davis, 6'3", 316 pounds, is a 26-year-old offensive guard for, like I said, the Tennessee Titans, and was drafted by them in the 2019 NFL Draft in the 3rd round, and was a super good player for them so far in his entire career. He had some injury issues here and there, and I think he also, finished the season 2022 on IR, so there are some injury concerns, but if he's on the field, he is one of the more consistent players on the entire Titan roster. Now, he played mostly right guard for the Titans, which is obviously not perfect fitting with the Bears, with just how Tevin Jenkins developed at the right guard spot, but I think he can easily switch over to left guard. I think we could make that work. And I think he's an excellent player that you can plug and play right away. Still a young player that could develop potentially as well, which is super important. And then he was just absolutely dominating the line of scrimmage. When I saw him in the run game, he got a really good push off the defensive lineman. And then also just like against the Colts, that tape looked really clean, got really a hold of Grover Stewart, had him one-on-one a couple of times, and just dropped his butt and anchored him. And that would be just a great protector for Justin Fields, which is highly needed. And would just be a great pickup in free agency to get another starter over Cody Whitehair, who definitely struggled last season. As for a contract, they project Spotrac once again a $7.4 million deal, annual average salary, and they project a contract of 3 years and $22 million. And if I'm the Bears, I'm totally paying that price for him. That's not a lot of money, $7.4 million per year for a really good starting guard that you have there that is still young, like I said, can develop. You have him for 3 years, maybe in 4 years, and got a really solid player to upgrade the offensive line immediately and make sure that Justin Fields can shine in 2023. And with Nate Davis, we want to move on to the defensive side of the football and want to talk about the first player today on that side, which is a edge rusher and Rasheem Green. Rasheem Green is a 6'4", 279-pound edge rusher who played for the Houston Texans last season, but was actually drafted in the 2018 NFL Draft by the Seattle Seahawks and spent his first 4 seasons there. He's still only 25 years old, will be 26 by the start of the season, and is a very intriguing player in this year's free agency. Like I said, he's a bit more like the topic of today's video, a sleeper candidate at the edges, but a very productive one. Played 17 games and started 16 of those in 2021 for the Seattle Seahawks and put out 6.5 sacks. And then in 2022 for the Houston Texans, he also played in 16 games, started 5 of those, and had 3.5 sacks. And he will be amazing an amazing addition to the Chicago Bears defense right away. We need as many pass rushers as we can get, and with Rasheem Green, there's one of the younger ones available in free agency that would be an elite backup right away, that you can plug him into the rotation and just let him hunt after the quarterback right away. Looked at his tape, looked really good. His get off is really nice, and against the run he looked pretty good as well. He set the edges very properly and just looked really good. Like Rasheem Green, definitely an under the radar guy after the guys that I already talked about. So like I said, once again, if you want to, feel free to check out the defensive line episode. There I talked about, I think, 7 guys. Yeah, 7 guys, 7 defensive linemen in this year's free agency, but I didn't mention Rasheem Green yet, so I want to make sure I do this today. As for his contract projection, we're talking about $3.4 million average annual salary and a deal of 2 years, $6.8 million for him in free agency. And if I'm the Bears, that's a very cheap deal. $3.5 million or around $3.5 million per year for an edge rusher that can produce right away, has produced already in his entire career, and definitely can give your starters some pressure off of their legs as well. And if some of those actually is hurt, right? If a starter is hurt for 1 or 2 games, Rasheem Green can step in right away and produce, and the drop-off won't be that big. So he's definitely one of my favorite edge rushers hitting free agency this year, and he would be a very intriguing player for the Bears to get in this year's free agency. And with that being said, we want to move on to the next defensive lineman that I want to talk about today, which is not an edge rusher, but a defensive tackle in Poona Ford, formerly known for the Seattle Seahawks. Poona Ford is 27 years old, a 5'11", 310-pound defensive tackle who plays 3-tech as well as nose tackle, or played both for Seattle. And man, Poona Ford is definitely one of my favorite options in this year's free agency. He's probably the biggest name on the list today, and I mean, he is absolutely phenomenal. He somewhat had a down season in 2022, but was a phenomenal player still in my books. Like, all the tape and plays I watched today of him looked absolutely phenomenal. He's just a disruptor of the defense. There was a sequence where he had a sack, a batted pass, and then a great run stop in a row, which was absolutely phenomenal. In 2022, though, he played in 17 games, started 16 of those, had 3 sacks, 35 tackles, 6 TFLs, and 7 quarterback hits. And also in 2021 was very productive, played in all 17 games, started all of those, had 2 sacks, 53 tackles, 6 TFLs, and 6 quarterback hits in that year. And overall, when you look at him, first of all, I love his versatility because he can play nose tackle, he can play 3-tech. You could move him around in the interior of the defensive line, which is obviously valuable. And then he's just an incredibly well run stuffer. Like, he can take on double teams. He will make sure to always keep his hands up if he doesn't have a chance to win that double team, to make sure the ball is batted down. He will fight off blocks. He makes super secure tackles. And then he also has somewhat of a pass rush ability, like no elite interior rusher, but he can definitely at times get to the quarterback and overpower some guards or some centers in the NFL, which is absolutely phenomenal as well. And I would be way too excited if the Chicago Bears were actually able to get him. And he, I think, also got the biggest projected contract in today's video. SpotReg says a $9.2 million average annual salary. And if I'm the Bears, I'm totally into Poona Ford if he's actually hitting the open market. Contract projection wise, we're talking about a 3-year, $27.8 million deal, which is somewhat similar to guys like DJ Jones, Justin Jones, who just plays for the Bears, but we're still talking about an increase of $3 million for Poona Ford here. Also, DJ Reader, who's a great player in the league as well. And like I said, Poona Ford really would give a lot up for him because he's such a good player. We need help on the D-line stopping the run because it was horrible last season. And if the Bears are able to get Poona Ford, that should improve immediately as well. And with that being said, we want to move on to the second to last player that I want to talk about today, which is actually a linebacker in Bobby Okereke, formerly known for the Indianapolis Colts. Okereke is a 6'1", 235-pound linebacker at the age of 26. He will be 27 to the start of the season, though, who was drafted in the 2019 NFL draft by the Indianapolis Colts in the 3rd round. And he is a guy that was mentioned a lot with the Chicago Bears already, and it obviously makes sense a lot because he is a former linebacker for head coach Matt Eberflus and his defensive system. So, and also Alan Williams, our DC, he will help out a lot as well. All know the guy already, which is great. And he really stepped up, especially over the last 2 seasons for Indy. In 2021, he started his full season, all 17 games. In 2022 as well, played in 17 games and started 16 of those. And first of all, it's just an absolute tackle machine. In 2021, he had 132 combined tackles. And in 2022, we're talking about 151 tackles overall. Also 6 TFLs in there. We had 2 forced fumbles, 5 pass deflections, and all the tape I saw was the guy just racking up defensive lanes, reading fast, being a smart player, recognizing screens fast, shooting down, making great tackles, looked pretty solid in coverage as well. And obviously we got Jack Sanborn, but the linebacking room for the Chicago Bears is a bit of a weakness at the moment as well, especially with that depth. And if Bobby Okereke actually hits the open market, that's probably the number 1 guy at linebacker that you want to target this year because, like I said, he got familiarity with the system. His projected contract is not too much as well. They're talking about $2.3 million average annual salary and a 2-year $4.6 million deal. I think that will definitely go up a bit with Okereke, just like he played in 2022. I can't see him get that little money. I think he could definitely get a little bit more than that, but overall, he's still young, at a great age, and just enters his prime and just looked like an absolute beast for the Indianapolis Colts in 2022. He would definitely be a fun player to watch on that Bears defense for years to come and would form a dynamic duo next to Jack Sanborn. And with that, we wanted to move on to the last player that I want to talk about today, which is a cornerback in Cameron Sutton, formerly known for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Cameron Sutton is once again a very intriguing player in this year's free agency. He's 5'11", 188 pounds, and 28 years old. Was drafted in the 2017 NFL draft in the 3rd round by the Pittsburgh Steelers and had a phenomenal season in 2022 for the Steelers, and over the last 2 years actually started all of the games for them, except for 2 games in 2022. He played in 16 last year and started 15 of those, had 3 interceptions, which is amazing, 15 pass deflections, 43 tackles, and 1 tackle for loss in there as well. And what I saw on tape was absolutely phenomenal, especially when it comes to range. Like, they dropped him back into coverage into a deep 3rd at one time, and I think it was Joe Burrow or whoever wanted to throw a seam on him. He just closed in so quickly and made an athletic play. He's an absolute ball hawk as well. Like, his ball skills are outstanding. He catches so many crazy interceptions. Not that many, right? He had 3 in 2022, but he had really good ball skills, and it's just overall a really solid corner. Now, will he get beat at times? Yes, he will, but I mean, he's just as solid as it gets. We need help at cornerback, especially outside with Kyler Gordon moving to the inside into the nickel so often. But what Cameron Sutton does as well is he lined up outside and in the nickel as well. So if you want to say, Kyler Gordon, go outside, we need you on this player for this play, you can move Cam Sutton in there as well. That's no problem. So he's used to switching around between inside and outside. But overall, he would be a great addition. And with Jalen Johnson, then Kyler Gordon, and then Cameron Sutton would definitely form a very good cornerback trio here in Chicago. Here's for his contract. They project a $7.6 million average annual salary and a contract of 3 years, $22.9 million. I think that's a very fair deal for a very good veteran corner that can play for your team for a couple of more years at a very high level. He's still only 28 years old, which is great, and the guy was just an absolute baller in 2022 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and definitely probably my favorite option in free agency this year. He won't be too expensive. It's also not the biggest need for the Bears, so So if you really want to spend your money wisely in free agency with the cornerbacks, Cameron Sutton, I think, is the guy to target for the Bears in 2023. And with that being said, that finishes off 8 sleeper candidates in the 2023 NFL free agency. Really excited about this free agency. I mean, I can't wait and see what happens with that. Draft season is on. It's just such a fun time right now being a Bears fan because the hopes are getting higher and higher and higher. Also with all the rumors about the first overall pick. So it's a very exciting time to say the least. And with that being said, that's the end of the episode, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. Definitely let me know in the comments down below what you think of those sleeper candidates, and are there any other players that you like in free agency in 2023? Definitely let me know down there as well. Like and subscribe if you liked the video. Check out Instagram and Twitter if you want to as well. And as always, guys, bear down.